Hello, it's Darren Moor again from the How to Survive Your Police Career website, providing as always health, welfare and relationship advice for officers and frontline staff, and all of it as practical as possible. Today's podcast is directed towards new officers straight out of training school and about to join their first team on station. Yeah, I bet there's a bit of stress leakage going on, isn't there? But trust me, it's not only you that's unsettled. As a skipper, I was often amazed how some of the old sweats on the team reacted to the arrival of somebody new. At times it could be most peculiar. Seasoned bobbies, usually capable of dealing with any emergency or social interaction, would go a little bit odd just because they were meeting a 20-year-old probationer straight out of training school. The reality, I'm afraid, is that your arrival on the team, like that of any stranger, may result in a brief period of turbulence. Maybe some play acting. Nothing outrageous and probably only subconsciously for most, but perhaps enough for some of the team to act a bit funny, a little bit odd around you. And the reason why? Well, amazingly, and often quietly, they're trying to work out whether you're a threat to them or their position in the established pecking order of the team. And the smaller the team, the more noticeable these concerns are. The crazy thing, of course, is that you've got no desire to be a threat to anyone, have you? This isn't some hostile takeover you're launching. Your wish more than anything is to be accepted by the gang with the minimum of fuss. You prefer to be invisible. So how can you settle into the team without causing waves? Or what can you do to settle your team down, might be a better way of looking at it. Here's a few suggestions for you, combined with some ghastly pitfalls to avoid. The first thing to understand is that when you arrive on your first day, everyone, including the supervisors, are going to be very welcoming. Perhaps more so than you might have imagined because, well, that's just how the service is these days. This is great, of course, especially as you were probably crapping yourself beforehand. But nice though it is, don't be suckered into taking all this loviness for granted, or expect their cosy welcome to last very long without some effort on your part. Goodwill needs to be nurtured if you want it to continue in the weeks and months ahead. The reality, I'm afraid, is that the team has expectations of their new probationer, and you're going to want to meet those expectations, because otherwise you may discover that the gushy warmth for their welcome soon evaporates. And then your failings become more of a subject of conversation. And then those failings become a fascination on the team. And their initial enthusiasm for you, collapsing by the day, develops instead into a malaise of general indifference as to whether you succeed or fail. Your cause is lost. And to avoid this horror, what are these expectations that you need to be aware of? Well, luckily, it's nothing outrageous. An average, easygoing team would expect you to be confident, but not overconfident. They want you to listen and learn, as opposed to having too much to say for yourself. They don't want you taking yourself too seriously, that's never pretty, but do like you to be able to take a joke against yourself. At the same time, they don't like you being too cheeky about other people on the team, especially the senior members, who, oddly enough, are probably the ones who are ribbing you the most. Yeah, I know this is rubbish, but then that's just how it is, I'm afraid, on a team. They don't appreciate you constantly groaning on about whatever job you had before, however exciting and important it was. You're in the police now, aren't you? Nobody cares that you used to be a fighter pilot or a brain surgeon. They certainly don't like your big enough experience gained from many other police roles, like jailer or PCSO, because, important though these jobs are, your new gang won't perceive them as being anything like that of a bobby. Although control room staff are often looked upon favourably because they come with some enhanced IT skills that can be used. Oh, and any conversation that starts with the words, well, when I was in the specials, yeah, I guess you know what I'm going to say about that. And I like specials. They're not, trust me, interested in what your best mate or relative has done or is doing in the police, however glamorous or important their job was or is. They do want to see you with a smile on your face. They don't want to hear you moaning. They don't want to detect any sense of Jack, as in, I'm all right, Jack, and being more interested in your own comfort than that of the team around you. If something needs to be done, even something that you've never done before, offer to do it. They don't want you turning up late to briefing, especially because you overslept on earlies. They certainly don't want any hint of booze on your breath from a late one the night before. They don't want you doing anything embarrassing in front of another team. Well, not unless you want to be transferred onto that other team. They don't really like much deviation away from uniform standards in a probationer. So no elaborate out for the evening hair for the ladies, or I can't be bothered to shave because it's early turn stubble for the blokes. They don't like you wearing some special bit of kit that best mate or relative you keep on going on about gave you as a present. They don't like you constantly looking at your phone when you're supposed to be working. If, for example, your tutor is in mid-flow, offering you the wisdom of their vast experience, then don't suddenly ignore them for a moment in order to check some message that's pinged up. No, I am listening. Go on. In fact, an easy way to demonstrate respect for your tutor is to leave your personal mobile switched off on duty while asking your nearest and dearest to ring on your work phone if it's that important. And certainly don't go checking messages if you're halfway through a meeting with one of your skippers. Do I need to say this? Well, yeah, because I've seen it done. Oh, and your tutor also doesn't want you dropping off to sleep in the passenger seat when they're driving you, equally tired, around on night duty, however much they say it's all right. Or being moody because you're tired on nights. Everybody's tired on nights. And if you notice your tutor always brings in food to eat for refs, that's refreshments, then do the same. Don't be the probationer who always wastes 20 minutes of your tutor's refs break waiting for you in the car as you stand in a takeaway or walk around a supermarket pondering what to have, because they will use that time phoning up other people on the team and moaning about you. And on the subject of food, if you mess up, buy cakes before someone challenges you because you haven't bought cakes, having messed up. And never be the bobby associated with cheap cakes. That's a reputation that's hard to get rid of. As is, incidentally, turning up on your first day on the team without them. Now that's a great way to chill down the warmth of their welcome. Your supervisors also have particular expectations when it comes to you. They don't want you misinterpreting their first day friendliness as an invitation to be over familiar with them. Just because your skippers come across as chummy and easygoing, don't go thinking that they are. And even though they make a big thing in your meet and greet about coming to them with any problems, that doesn't, just so we're clear, mean any problems. Or whinges, moans or general abstract observations about the joys of policing. That's what your tutor's for. And the inspector? Well, they're head of the gang, aren't they? And so need to be treated with a bit of reverence. So no wandering into their office without knocking and perching your bum on their desk like you own it, while moaning about not yet having a locker, or that someone's nicked your cat badge when you were daft enough to leave it unguarded on a desk for 5 minutes. They won't appreciate it and will just be complaining to the sergeants about you. Always bear in mind also that supervisors, while happy to be liked, know that it's much more important that they're respected, edging on feared if we're honest. This isn't some strange egomania on their part, it's instead the reality of police supervision. At times they will politely ask you to do things, whilst welcoming discussion and negotiation if necessary. But at other times they will tell you to do stuff, order you. Perhaps because the situation is immediate and relates to safety. Something needs to be done there and then without the pleasantness of explaining all. And you'll do yourself a favour by understanding this complex but confusing dynamic from the word go. But the most important thing in respect to supervisors is to not make that mistake of misinterpreting your position on the team during the first few weeks as a result of their cuddly welcome on the first day. Get it wrong and they may decide to put you in your place, and that's embarrassing. Oh, and another thing, don't go calling them by their first name. You might hear some of the old sweats do it, but don't be tempted to do it yourself, as their reaction might be, well, a bit passionate. But that's enough of supervisors. Let's end on a final tip in respect to the team in general, those you're going to be spending most of your time with. Do you know what they really like in their new probationer, as much as anything else? And I know this might come across as a bit contentious. They like you offering to make the coffee. Not because the coffee making itself is important, although in the middle of the night perhaps it is, but because it demonstrates in the simplest possible fashion your acceptance of the team hierarchy. Hey, look at me, I'm no threat to anybody. Archaic, I know, and possibly demeaning if you allow yourself to start thinking in those terms, but a sad fact of life is that nothing settles down a team after the arrival of a newcomer like them offering to put the kettle on. So think of it not in terms of hot beverages, but more of paying homage and showing respect to people whose advice and help you're going to need over the next few months. And you will need it. So, do yourself a favour, and with grace and good humour, gather up some cups, perhaps while whistling a cheery tune. Don't worry, it won't be long before you're palming the aggravation onto somebody else. Well, thanks for listening. The contents for today's podcast comes from my book, How to Survive Your Early Years as a Police Officer, where there's loads of stuff for the new Bobby, including more on getting on with your tutor and your supervisors, and even how to get on well with those crusty old instructors when you get sent on a course. Sometimes these courses can go very, very wrong, and even screw up your career. But the book provides all kinds of other information as well. How the public think, for example, spotting liars, how to deal with someone who's winding you up and wants you to punch them, delivering death messages without it turning into an utter disaster. In fact, everything I reckon you're going to need when you first arrive on station. It's like the boiled down wisdom of my 30 years of frontline experience, if you like, mixed in with some funny police stories to illustrate the points. Click on the website and you'll find a video of me, looking terribly uncomfortable in front of the camera, explaining what the book's all about while trying to flog you a copy, obviously. And while you're there, you can check out the equally painful videos for our 2 other books. The How to Survive Your Relationship with a Police Officer one, which is written for your partner and explains to them just how grim your job can be and how the pair of you can make the best of it together. Lots of practical solutions. And also our main health book for bobbies, How to Survive Your Police Career, which is all about sleep, nutrition, mental health, exercise, injury recovery, and just about everything else I found myself researching 25 years into my service when I discovered myself fat, knackered, stressed, and unable to walk down the stairs without hating life, and so decided to write a book about it for other bobbies. Anyhow, we're nearly done for today, but please don't forget, I always say this, we're keen to work with any police services or staff groups, local or national, or police commissioners, or any other organisations out there that want to collaborate with us on creating an app or other materials for getting the information from our books out to officers and staff. Perhaps you'd like them downloaded to your troops' work phones so that they can access the information whenever they want. All these things are possible, so just get in touch. We've done the research and come up with the practical answers, but more importantly, we present it in a way that the average bobby is going to read it, because that was always our test when writing these books. Is some jaded bobby or civilian working 24/7 going to be interested in this stuff? Are they going to read it? And the answer's, yeah, they will, if we can make it funny, interesting, and as connected to their lives as possible, and that's what we do. The books are full of practical tips like the stuff we've discussed today, so get involved. And they're also funny. They make you smile. And we all need that. But anyhow, I hope you're settling well with your new team. Despite what people might have told you, it is a great career. Take every opportunity to put the kettle on. And until next time, from How to Survive Your Police Career, stay safe and be lucky. Bye bye.